What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Unique Mazik, the hardest working man in sports and gaming. And I'm talking to you today about the Chicago Bears. If you saw my recent tweet, you know that you'll be seeing a lot of Chicago sports related content on this channel moving forward. And the gaming stuff, for the most part, 2K, you just check out At Me Bro. If you're not already a subscriber to At Me Bro, make sure you do that. I'll put the link in the description. But we got to talk about these Bears right now. And it's not a pleasant topic. It really is not, especially if you are a Chicago Bears fan. It's just not pleasant. Yesterday, Sunday Night Football, the Bears dropped to the Kansas City Chiefs 26-3. Managed 3 points. Field goal didn't come into the third quarter of the game. Just an abysmal performance overall. And when you're looking at, analyzing what went wrong, which there's a lot to analyze, again, it has to obviously start with the offense. You only scored 3 points. That's pretty clear, pretty easy. From a total offense standpoint, looks like the Bears mustered up 234 yards of total offense. Needless to say, you can't win that way, especially when the Chiefs had 244 yards of offense in the air alone, not to mention the fact that they rushed for 106 yards as a team. Is Mitchell Trubisky 18-34 on completions, no touchdowns. He didn't throw any interceptions. He was sacked 3 times. There's so many things in this particular game that we can point to and say there was an issue with this, there was an issue with that. Inaccurate passing came back and bit Trubisky again. It seemed as though he'd moved past that in the last 2 weeks, last 3 weeks, I would say. But it was back in full force against the Chiefs last night. Had Allen Robinson open for what would have been a touchdown, overthrew him. He admitted that in the post-game interview. I'm going to tell you something about Allen Robinson. I think Allen Robinson is one of the most, if not the most, underrated receivers in the league. I think from a talent standpoint, there's not a huge gap between him and Michael Thomas. I know Michael Thomas is 99 overall, rated a man. He's got the single season record for receptions, and he's having this fantastic year, and he's put together this really solid career. And I understand that. So I'm not diminishing Michael Thomas. What I'm telling you is that Allen Robinson is so much better than what his numbers would indicate. And I think the biggest reason why you don't see him be able to produce more along those lines is because he hasn't played with a good quarterback. He hasn't played with a quarterback on Drew Brees' level. You got to think he came from Jacksonville where he was catching passes from Blake Bortles. Now he's in Chicago catching passes from Mitchell Trubisky. And even with that, despite the fact that this is his situation, yesterday he had 6 catches for 53 yards, 12 targets. Some of them were overthrown and all of this, the different things that went on that hindered what he was trying to do. But even with everything that's going on, he has 89 catches this year for over 1,000 yards. It's his second season with over 1,000 yards receiving. So I'm not pulling this out of thin air when I'm saying this about Allen Robinson. I'm telling you, with more stable quarterback play, you'd see him perform so much better. But unfortunately, the Bears don't have that. One thing you can say about the Bears positively yesterday is that they ran the ball fairly well. David Montgomery, 13 carries for 57 yards. Trubisky got out and ran 6 times for 20 yards. They averaged 4.6 yards a carry. Of course, they did have a 116-yard run from Cordell Patterson. I've heard a lot of people, and I've even had debates with people back and forth about the Bears and their running game and so on and so forth. Some people are talking about, oh, it's dropped off because of Jordan Howard and da-da-da-da-da and all of these things. I'm going to tell you like this. The gap between Jordan Howard, if there is a gap between Jordan Howard and David Montgomery, is not huge. What's going on, King Anubis? What's going on, Gabe? I appreciate y'all coming through for the stream. It's not a huge gap, man. I tell people this all the time, and they think that I'm joking. They think I'm crazy when I say this. But these quote-unquote elite running backs are probably the most overrated from a value standpoint to a football team that you're going to find. If you just take a look back in history, right, and you look at all of the running backs that we consider to be great running backs, the Barry Sanders, the Walter Paytons, the all of those guys, these guys who we consider to be truly, how many championships do these guys won and led their teams to? I'm not diminishing their talent. What I'm telling you is great offensive lines are what you actually need, because a great offensive line will make a Timmy Smith look great. A great offensive line will make, yeah, and I'm not saying Otis Anderson wasn't a great running back. Obviously, he's a good running back. That it makes it possible for those guys to still do what they need to do. The Patriots have never really had a great running back in all of these years they contended. All of these, they had Corey Dillon when he was already old. It's not about that. And so if you're trying to say that the difference between the Bears running game this year and last year is about Jordan Howard not being there, you are missing the point. It's not about Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard was a good running back. He was one of my favorites during his time there. I do like David Montgomery. David Montgomery's a rookie. I think it's too early to completely evaluate what he is, especially compared to Jordan Howard. But he's not the reason the Bears can't run the ball. The Bears can't run the ball because from a run blocking standpoint, they're horrible. That's why they can't run the ball. If you look at Football Outsiders, or if you look at Pro Football Focus, and you look at how experts who are watching the Bears and watching from all 22 camera, looking and evaluating each position, if you look how they evaluate the Bears offensive line, and you see they come in at the bottom from a run blocking and pass blocking standpoint. So it's not about Jordan Howard. It's not about David Montgomery. It's about that offensive line. They can't run the ball. And that really is the genesis of all of their problems on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, is Trubisky the most accurate quarterback? Does he read defense as well? No. Those things do impact him. And those things do impact the Bears' bottom line on offense. But with a better offensive line, it makes his job so much easier. And gives him obviously more time to throw, more time to make the decisions. And also with a better offensive line, you have a better run game, which would give you so much more options on the offensive side of the ball, just period. So that's really what that's really what this is about. You know, that's really what this is about. I mean, it's about the offensive line from the beginning. Now, generally, we've been able to say that their defense has played well enough to win no matter what. Usually that's what we've been able to say. Not on Sunday night. On Sunday night, the Bears defense got walked up and down the field like they were a dog. Basically, they got walked. 3 possessions, 3 scores for the Chiefs. To a degree, I give them some excuse, not even an excuse, but some protection, because the Chiefs offense is a high-powered offense with multiple weapons and the reigning MVP as the quarterback. So when you play against an offense of that caliber, you can't necessarily expect to shut them down. This is where you do need the offense to sustain a drive, score some points, that then puts pressure on the other team's offense, and then somewhat makes it, this is why this is a team game, makes the defense's job a little bit easier. But what we're seeing, and I love Khalil Mack. I love him. He's one of my favorite players. But he got a sack last night, and people acted like it was cause for a parade. Over the last 7 to 8 weeks, Khalil Mack has not played like a special player. Yes, he is getting double teamed. Yes, he is getting triple teamed. Yes, he is getting chipped with running backs, and tight ends are getting help from guards and all sorts of things. Yes, those things are happening. But those things are happening to other dominant other dominant pass rushers too, and they're finding a way to impact the game more. Khalil Mack's not impacting the game the way he did earlier in the season, the way he did parts of last season. I don't know if it's a conditioning issue. I don't know if he's injured and and it's not being shared. The bottom line is he's not impacting. I thought once Akeem Hicks came back, which of course he didn't play last night, I thought that would make a difference. He played okay against the Packers, but still not the impact plays that you need. And just overall, the Bears defense didn't play well at all. They didn't stop. They didn't really stop the run. The Chiefs didn't do much with the run, but the Chiefs just had too many weapons in the passing game Bears didn't have the secondary or the linebacker coverage to handle it. Then again, like I said, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, all these elite especially from a speed standpoint, just elite guys. Like I talked about the run game. I thought the run game was decent, so you can't really pick on that. Let's talk about some of the people who shined. I thought, even though the team lost, I thought that Kevin Pierre-Louis continues to play well in replacement of Roquan Smith and in replacement of Danny Trevathan. I think he continues to play well. I thought Nick Kwiatkowski played well again. I think he did struggle in some coverage situations with Travis Kelce, but then again, most linebackers do. But Kevin Pierre-Louis led the team in tackles. I just thought that guy has such a lively body, such a great motor. I love the way he plays in the middle of the defense. King Anuma says Charles Leno needs to go. He's getting beat every single play. Not only is Leno getting beat, King Anubis, Leno is a penalty machine. He is a penalty factory. That's all he does. Either he's getting beat or he's getting a penalty. That does not, I mean, obviously that's a negative. Low key Golly says if the Bears get better defense, they're instant contenders. Well, no, I think the defense is already playing well. Yesterday was an exception to the rule. The defense is not keeping the Bears from being contenders. The offense is what's keeping them from being a contender. They scored 3 points yesterday. You can't win any game scoring 3 points. It's not going to work out. So, that's the issue. That's the issue. It's scoring only 3 points. Yesterday, obviously, no, they did not defend. They didn't play good defense. But I feel like yesterday's poor defensive performance is more of an exception rather than the rule that we've been seeing all season long. Let's talk at this point when you're 7-8 and you're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. You got to start looking at next year. You got to start looking at potential free agents. You got to start looking at the draft. What can you do? The Bears don't have a first round pick. They've, some, I would say, sensible trades for Khalil Mack and then moving up to get Trubisky, which it was really crazy last night when Patrick Mahomes threw the touchdown pass to Travis Kelce and then he counts to 10 on his hand, counting to the where he goes in the draft, the fact that the Bears passed him up to get Trubisky, and now he's sitting here killing them. That the Patrick Mahomes is a dog, and I love it. This is what I'm talking about. You need this type of competitor there, somebody with this level of self-confidence. Clearly, Trubisky is lacking and behind him in several instances, and this is just another one of them. But I thought that was interesting. The Bears, I'm not going to go as far as to say there has to be a change at quarterback automatically. But to me, the Bears should be in on Teddy Bridgewater. They should be in on the negotiations to try to sign him. I would think the Chiefs may want to hold, not the Chiefs, the Saints may want to hold on to him because obviously as good as Breeze is still playing, he is still advanced in age. And we'll have to see how long he can stay at that level. And there's other teams that need quarterbacks. And Bridgewater should be among the most sought-after free agent quarterbacks out there. So that from a free agent standpoint, quarterback is something I would just to add the depth there, because if you do go into the season again and you're going to give Trubisky another look, you got to have a better option to go to than to simply say, well, we're going to go to Chase Daniel, who is also obviously not a long-term solution. So you need somebody on that team who is a long-term solution. And I would also recommend them drafting a developmental quarterback in the 5th or 6th round who may not from, first look be someone you could look at and say, oh, yeah, he's going to go out and start from the beginning. But at least he'd be somebody who you could say, you know what, we can bring him along in our system. And perhaps maybe middle of the season, later in the season, or the beginning of not the season coming up, but the beginning of the 2021 season, perhaps he's then ready to step in and be the quarterback at that point. So you just got to give yourself options. Other needs, I think they definitely need help at the nickel cornerback. Buster Skrine plays hard, but his instincts, I wonder about. He gets beat on a lot of inside moves. And from the nickelback position, I just don't. He worries me there. So I think there's definitely room for improvement there. Just corner, period. I feel like Prince Amukamara is a weak link there in the corner, even when he's healthy. I think that there's improvement for sure that could be done there. Pass rusher. Leonard Floyd is going to be a free agent. I do not think he has earned an extension. And I don't think he's been horrible, but he absolutely hasn't been a difference maker. And if you can have a difference maker on the edge, and I still call in Khalil Mack that, of course, and you have another one on the other side, I think you drastically improve the pass rush and the defense overall. So pass rusher is something I think they have to also look at. But my number one is the offensive line. The Bears' top priority in free agency, even above Teddy Bridgewater, to me needs to be an offensive lineman. Has to be. They need to improve that unit overall, because if they can establish that unit as a dominant unit, then I think at this point, now you're ready for the offense to take the next step. But where they are now is hot trash. It's hot trash. King Anubis says the Bears need to find a veteran quarterback to challenge Trubisky's starting job. Yep, that's what I was kind of getting at with Teddy Bridgewater. And Teddy Bridgewater is a veteran, but he's still young enough that you could give him the keys and say, this guy could be my quarterback for the next 7 years. He says, what about Cam Newton? I love Cam Newton. I've always been a big fan, but I am seriously worried about his durability moving forward. I also worry about his leadership. Cam Newton is the type of dude that he's great to be on your team when you're winning, but when you're losing, it makes you wonder a little bit. And I love Cam, but that's just real. Mr. Quint says, what up, Mazik? I love the Bears, but these decisions have probably set the team back for years to come. Here's the thing. Those decisions are fantastic if they work out. And if they don't, they do what you said. They set them back for years. Moving up to get Trubisky was not a bad decision in theory. The problem is they got the wrong guy. And the problem is they really didn't have to move up, because the right guys would have been there when they were picking, but they misdiagnosed and misscouted the quarterback that they had to have. Same draft as Deshaun Watson, same draft as Patrick Mahomes. And the quarterback that the Bears identify as the one they quote unquote have to have is the wrong guy. So moving up to get a franchise quarterback is not bad, but you just better make sure that the one you're getting is exactly a franchise quarterback. And that's not what the Bears did. The Khalil Mack trade, based off of what he did last season and what he did the first half of this season, I totally think it was worth it. I think he transformed a good defense to become a great defense because of the amount of attention he draws. And even with that attention, sometimes he was still making all these huge plays. He just hasn't played like that over the last 7 to 8 weeks. So I think that is the issue. The cornerbacks, the free agent cornerback market is actually I don't know. It really is a little bit sketchy. I'm gonna pull it up now, and we can kind of talk about it for a second. The top guys at corner, and of course, you never know how this turns out. There's things that can change here and there, but the Bears are going to lose Sherrick McManus, and I would strongly consider bringing him back. I think Marcus Peters might be the best guy on this list. I love Marcus Peters. I love his attitude. I love his game. I think that would be a fantastic pickup for the Bears if they could pull that off. I don't mind either Trey Waynes or Mackenzie Alexander. Those are both Minnesota Vikings guys. Aqib Talib is too old at this point. But those would be those three guys. Byron Jones, of course. If they can pull Byron Jones, that's a huge one. But those guys would be number one, or at the top of my list from a free agent cornerback standpoint. But again, do not forget what I said about the offensive line. The offensive line has to be the number one focus to me. The Bears need a shutdown offensive tackle, and it has to start there. And then from there, they have to to develop a unit, because all offensive line is a unit more than it is about individuals. It is a team unit that has to function that way. That generally takes at least a season to establish, but you just have to make sure that you get the right guys, the right offensive line coach, and getting guys functioning in the system that works for you. There's a bunch of names out there, of people who would send your antenna up. Brian Bulaga is going to be a free agent. Anthony Costanzo, I think, was a Bear at one point. Andrew Whitworth is going to be Jason Peters, who is mangled up and older at this point. These are all tackles. Donald Penn is out there. These are names that are out there. Jamarcus Webb, who I liked coming out of college. There's names out here for the Bears to go out and get at the offensive line position. But what they have to do is they have to scout this spot, and they have to say which one of these guys and how can we build a unit? Because at this point, I think the only guy on the offensive line that the Bears say we need to retain this and we'll build everything around him. And not to say he's the best offensive lineman that they would have, but young enough, moldable enough is Cody Whitehair. I don't know that I love Cody Whitehair at the center the way a lot of people do. It's a lot of snap issues, just some issues there overall. But I do love him overall to keep him on that offensive line. So I would love to see how that happens. Azad Bilal, appreciate you coming through, says, you think the Bears were the most disappointing team this year in the NFL? Absolutely right up there at the top. If they're not the most disappointing team, they're definitely in the running. Raider 7528 says the entire AFC was disappointing. I don't know about the entire AFC. I mean, obviously the Chiefs weren't disappointing. The Chiefs fell off a little bit, but overall, I don't think they're disappointing. The Patriots, obviously, even though they still won the division. They didn't run away with it as they do most times, but but King Anubis says both tackles need to be replaced. I don't love Bobby Massey anymore than I love Charles Leno. I'm just going to let you know. So I agree with you totally there. And Azad says, you think Khalil Mack's regression this year was on him or something else? I don't know for a fact, Azad, but I'm going to tell you what I think. I think that something's wrong with him. I think he has some sort of injury that is not bad enough to keep him off the field, but I think that it is hindering his performance. I also think he has a conditioning issue. And I think that the Bears' inability to mount consistent drives on offense and by that being the case, they're keeping their defense on the field so often. I think those things are contributing to Mack from a conditioning standpoint. And I also think that there may be some injury, because it just doesn't make sense for him to be so dominant early on last year and the early part of this year. And then sometimes he is getting doubled and triple teamed, but there's other times where I'm watching him and I'm watching one tackle handle him. And that just did not happen earlier this season. And that did not happen last year. So there is something is happening where I don't know exactly what it is, but something is happening. So, well, that's all that I have for you guys. I appreciate you popping through. I will pop back in during midweek to talk about the injuries going into the last week of the season, the last matchup of the season. And I'll also be talking a little bit more about specific potential free agent fits, as well as draft possibilities for the Bears. If you are a Bears fan, make sure you subscribe. Your Bulls fans subscribe, Cubs and White Sox as well. We'll be talking some Chicago sports here for sure. I am born and raised in Chicago and loved these teams. I appreciate you watching as always. God bless and peace.